The Siege of Tiber. Would you like to know more? Lasting from 2732 to 2736, the Siege of Tiber is remembered today for the UAE military's heroic struggle to keep the Vanduul from overrunning the system, and as the longest unbroken combat engagement between the two forces up to that point. Though Tiber would eventually fall to the Vanduul invaders, the UAE military doesn't consider the campaign a complete loss. A lot of the humanity's collected knowledge of the Vanduul military strategies and tactics were learned during the first moments of that fight and continued throughout those 4 long, bloody years of battle. Many consider humanity's first contact with the Vanduul to have occurred in 2681, when the settlement of Armitage in the Orion system was attacked, a prelude to the sporadic attacks that ensued over the following decades. The combined brevity and ferocity of these attacks often prevented the UAE from collecting definitive intelligence about the Vanduul, but in 2688, renowned anthropologist Dr. Arlo Gellis released a groundbreaking study about the Vanduul social dynamics titled Clan Theory. Dr. Gellis posited that the Vanduul forces weren't organized under a conventional government, but consisted of various clans of sizes and strengths that could vary greatly and could be identified only by the markings on their ships. These clans usually operated independently of each other, but would occasionally join forces, like during the coordinated attacks on Orion in 2712, that ultimately pushed humanity from the system. After the defeat, UAE forces fell back to the Tiber and prepared for a secondary defensive line, but the Vanduul did not follow. Instead, they stayed in Orion, harvesting the system for all of its resources. The UAE Navy strengthened forces in Tiber and anxiously watched the jump to Orion, certain that an attack was imminent. Some military historians have even claimed that the Navy conducted several classified experiments that failed to collapse the Tiber-Orion jump. Then, on February 4, 2726, a Vanduul light fighter, military designation Blade, was spotted in the system. Navy forces scrambled to contain the fighter, but it ultimately disappeared. Soon after, Vanduul appeared in increasing numbers, and by the end of the year, small clan raids were happening with erratic frequency, similar to the attacks on Orion. Often months passed without incident. This pattern of engagement lasted until April 19, 2732, when a large Vanduul clan entered Tiber and attacked UAE forces monitoring the imminent area around the jump. When smaller clans followed closely behind and joined the fight, UAE forces fled and ceded control of the Tiber-Orion jump point to the Vanduul. The Siege of Tiber had officially begun. High Command taking the fight back to the Vanduul. Would you like to know more? High Command assigned Grand Admiral Teska Halmeid the unenviable task of evicting the Vanduul from Tiber. While Halmeid knew as much, if not more, about the Vanduul than anyone else in the Navy, thanks to his in-depth studies of academic papers and after-action reports, he was still considered a controversial choice to lead such a campaign. His extensive knowledge was widely respected, but critics characterized Grand Admiral Halmeid as a classroom commander who hadn't gleaned any of his knowledge through combat experience in the field. Grand Admiral Halmeid first tripled the number of troops guarding the jumps to Virgil and Oberon. Then he docked his ship, the UES Aquilon, at the system's largest shipyard, INS Ananine, to defend the jump to Virgil. He kept capital ships docked at the strategic space stations across Tiber, while smaller fleets patrolled as loose guerrilla units. These patrols were given specific instructions on when to engage and when to flee Vanduul forces. Rules of engagement varied greatly depending on force, size, and objective, but in practice, the policy usually only advised attacking if naval forces had superior numbers. Ridiculed as a run, don't gun strategy, Grand Admiral Halmeid defended his position by claiming he saved pilots by pushing them towards engagements they could actually win. This cautious engagement strategy allowed the Vanduul to slowly expand their foothold in the system. By mid-2733, Tiber II had become a fierce battleground with various clans vying to control space stations and established outposts. Yet, most UEE capital ships remained docked in well-defended space stations, drawing intense criticism from other generals who felt that the Vanduul were entrenched in the system. Only in private did Grand Admiral Halamede disclose to his advisors the real reason why he would commit his full forces to the Vanduul. He maintained a hope that diplomacy was the way to end the war. "What I need is intelligence and time to figure out how to reach them," he wrote his confidant. "If we fully commit to war, then total war is the only path forward." In early 2734, the Vanduul began pushing more aggressively on Tiber II. Vids of Vanduul harvesters chewing through Tiber II made it to Spectrum and causing a stir across the Empire. Sensing that their overall grasp of the system was slipping, Grand Admiral Halamede responded by finally deploying the UES Aquilon and a large contingent of UEE forces near the planet. Vanduul clans, clamoring for a fight, eagerly launched to clash with the large fleet. This left the Vanduul encampments lightly guarded and allowed UEE strike teams to carry out aerial bombardments and devastating most of them. This was a victory. It also turned out to be a provocation that would not go unanswered. The clans that were devastated by the aerial bombardment fled the system, while others arrived to claim what was abandoned. Declassified naval reports indicate the Vanduul numbers actually increased after the aerial bombardments of Tiber II. Grand Admiral Halamede dispensed his capital fleet to try and repeat the success. He would use ships as decoys to bait clans into chasing him around the system, while the strike teams hit targets exposed by the distraction. Intelligence gathered and battle tactics first tested during this time greatly advanced the military's understanding of the Vanduul. The Navy even reclaimed several lost space stations, though it would be proven to be too little too late. In November of 2735, naval intelligence received word of a large Vanduul clan amassing in an unexpected part of the system. Grand Admiral Halamede gathered a small force around the UES Aquilon once more and went to assess the situation personally. He discovered the Vanduul pouring through a previously unknown jump point to the system-designated Vector, right around the same area the initial Vanduul scout ship had disappeared years ago. Moments after arriving, the recon team was discovered and ambushed. Vanduul forces destroyed the UES Aquilon, killing all aboard, including Halamede. The few survivors limped back in their ships to INS Arnin. The loss of Grand Admiral Halamede sent the Navy scrambling, and High Command appointed Admiral Mira Triolo, a staunch critic of Halamede's measured engagement strategy, as the new commander in Tiber. The new admiral consolidated her forces into a huge fleet, meant to directly challenge the Vanduul. Her first major encounter resulted in the loss of thousands of starmen and 3 capital-class ships. Undeterred, Admiral Trilo continued to confront the Vanduul directly, and in a move that would later draw much scrutiny, ordered the redeployment of reinforcements from Virgil Bolster in her defense. In 2736, the War of Tiber would reach a fever pitch. Imperator Galler Messer IX personally ordered a massive campaign of aerial bombardment on Tiber II, convinced that the controlling of the planet would limit the Vanduul's ability to resupply their war machines. Instead, it turned the planet into a wasteland and earned the epithet Tomb. Then, on December 29, 2736, a Vanduul capital-class kingship arrived from Orion. Identified as one of the largest and oldest clans that has been documented by the military, the kingship led an attack on the INS Anin. Despite a valiant resistance by the station, half of all Navy forces in the system were lost during the battle. With the naval line broken and their ships routed, Admiral Trilo ordered forces to fall back to Virgil. Admiral Trilo assumed the Vanduul would remain in Tiber to rip apart the system as they did in Orion, but instead the Vanduul followed. They took control of the Tiber-Virgil jump point and sent scouts across the system. Only a few days later, on January 2, 2737, a vast Vanduul fleet pushed into Virgil. Admiral Triolo managed to slow their advance, buying precious time to cover the retreat of over 1 million refugees, but Virgil soon fell. The Siege of Tiber may be remembered as a failed military campaign to save the system, yet many consider it a valuable time in the war against the Vanduul, thanks to the lessons learned during the siege that are still being put to use to put down Vanduul to this day. If you made it this far, thank you for checking out this lore post. I know they're not the most popular thing. I just wanted to take something easy. I kind of tried to do the would you like to know more thing from Starship Troopers just to have some fun with it. I'm probably not going to get beeps in here, like a technical beep or something, but I'll probably put some like war music in the background or something, heroic music. This was done during 3.14, this time period. This was jump point 9.6. This came from, I should start with that. This is kind of all over time, because let's say. But jump point 9.6. This was in June 2021, this was released. So props to the team for choosing newer content and getting it out the door to the public beyond the subscribers. I've long pointed out that subscribers of the Star Citizens game on the website, you go through the Centurion or the Imperator levels of subscription. I'd always recommend the lower one. It's actually pretty good value if you're really into content and you want some free plushies and stuff like that, and Gorf camos and things, and once in a while a nice little firearm or armor or something. But my bigger thought here is, what does this mean for the future of content for the larger audience? Because we need people to know about the Siege of Tiber. We need people to know about why Orion matters, and these type of systems have a rich backstory. And you're gonna go there as a player, and people are going to have a chip on their shoulder if they see UEE patches, or they're going to be very appreciative, and you're going to have no idea why. So I hope that if these are not implemented, where these are made public faster and more content is made, not just cherry picked specific stories out of these older subscriber only jump point material, I hope to see that these are taken word for word and put into the game in different ways. It would be cool maybe to, while you're in warp to these systems, jump into these systems, and you're just landing, you're boning up on your research. You're learning a little bit more about the system if you choose to. And then the backstory, you understand the people a little bit more. Maybe you dress a certain way to not anger them or to gain their favor in a trade deal, one way or the other. It'd be kind of cool to see small things like that, little nuances. Also, understanding where and when the Vanduul operate and their tactics is incredibly important for the player base. So these are all just some thoughts in my head about this specific jump point. I know lore videos are not the most popular. Like I said earlier, it's just something easy for me to start with again. And yes, I'm getting back into making videos. I am heavy into 3.17. It has been quite a rocky road trying to get footage out of 3.17. To CIG's credit, there has been some great leaps in just the past day or two, but I'm trying to balance around work, necessities and life and such, and get some videos made. So this is my first foray. You will see some 3.17 content. One other thing that is a bit of a spoiler, I guess. I've been working on a hoverbag video in 3.16 live, and now that's going to be rolled into 3.17. There is some major changes to signature of different vehicles, ground vehicles, and the hover vehicles had massive EM signatures. So they were basically unable to be used for any type of stealth mission or any type of objective, even just basic things. They lit up like a Christmas tree if somebody had some type of scanning capacity, or say an automated turret in the future, like I was going to theory craft in my video. And I was halfway through that video, and then I saw the 3.17 PTU patch notes, and I said, wow, look at that signature reduction. So you're going to see soon a change up, but it's still looking like, unless it changes yet again, that wheels are the way to go for super stealth compared to hovering technologies, but hovering technologies are not much worse anymore. It used to be multiples that worse in their signature production, but they are not. If you're looking for the river, it's 422 kilometers off of New Babbage. It is in like the area that changes just from ice to forest. It's like southeast, if I'm not mistaken. I'm gonna have to go there again to double check. I literally watched a couple YouTube videos. There's plenty of them on there already. The river's not much to write home about yet, but it is amazing to see the things to come. One other cool thing about the river, if you do go down into the areas that are just beyond the ice and fly into them, keep in mind you can actually do a bit of swimming. Make sure you're wearing a helmet. It's not like an incredible animated thing. There is not much water effects yet, if many at all, but this is a sign of things to come. Flowing water and rivers matter, and they're a great setting if you're working on any type of machinima or other types of video content. The river would be a great setting. I'm probably going to do a couple ground vehicle videos there, rolling my C2 over there, and then just dumping out all the vehicles and kind of having some fun with it. And that's kind of where I'm going to leave this now. Thank you again for sticking with me. Those who have reached out to me on Discord, those who have reached out to me, the one person who reached out to me on Reddit, I really do appreciate that you looked out for me and looking in. And yes, I am making content. I am doing well. And I hope you are as well. Those I've talked to, obviously I know how you're doing, and I know the holidays have treated you well. But those who I've not spoken with, those who are in a rough place right now, don't hesitate to reach out. If anything, I can't help with any of that, but I can maybe make your gaming experience a little bit better. If you just want somebody to play with, if you're looking for some things, just a warning, once in a while I do record for YouTube, but I will let you know. And if you don't want the audio, I can mask that. Just a lot of times I'm recording B-roll constantly for all sorts of ships. I guess I'll continue this slightly longer because this is my first video back, and I'm just kind of having some fun chatting with y'all. I will say that the timeline of when they released this Siege of Tiber content is interesting. So this was released back in the 21, and I looked at the patch notes of that during that time period. I was looking at the 3.14 patch notes, and I was thinking about how we were so excited about Orison and clouds and such. And it's weird, they're releasing this now, not because of what's in 3.17 per se. In fact, Loreville is far more exciting to me right now, instead of Orison. But from what I'm hearing through the rumor mill, that is blatant rumors, I have no backing up of this, there may be some major interesting new things in Orison combat-wise, like FPS style stuff, from what I'm hearing through the rumor mill for Fleet Week. Now, if that's the case, that would be really exciting for a 3.17.1, and that means that we would have a very tight production schedule. I want to remind anybody who's just back off of rumors and back to normal reality. I want to remind anybody looking hard at ships anytime soon, the gray market, the regular market, whatever it may be. Obviously, I don't provide links or anything to the gray market, but we have to acknowledge it's at least there. Remember, there's official sources of sales coming up for Fleet Week, and then right after it is Alien Week. And so, the next few weeks, we're probably going to see some serious discussions coming up about like what the new ships are. And yes, this was recorded on 4/6. So it's I do know about the Expanse. I do think it's there. I am very frustrated, and I'll explain why. It has nothing to do with the Expanse. It has to do with the fact that that plain and simple, they nerfed the Starfarer again. So there's audio in the background of that video explaining that the Starfarer is only meant for fuel refining and liquids and such. And that stopped me in my tracks, and I just said, wait a minute. We heard from the EU teams that were working on refining tech and making the whole refining mini game and such, that they were going to have the Starfarer was going to have all these different technologies. You would just need many different precursors that would take up a ton of space, so it would be prohibitive to do more than one or two types of mining. So you would need to stick to, say, mining fuel or assisting in refining mining solids.
But now the Starfarer is not the basis of that. This new ship, this starter ship, that's about the size of a mole, if everyone's to be believed, is going to be your refinery of all types. But it's going to be very small. So I am concerned about how this is operating. I also caught a little snippet at the end of that discussion about how it'll go perfect with a rock. And I'm like, well, a rock's kind of weak sauce, compared to even a mole. I was picturing a mole operating next to this thing. So I'm hoping that's the case, that its refineries, all little 6 cylinders of them, can keep up with a mole. That ideally would be the lowest level to me of starter ship. Because even if you're operating with, say, 2 rocks or 3 rocks, you'd want one of these things. I don't want to have to carry around a whole herd of these expanses just to work with rock. So that's just a few thoughts I had. There's also some massive cargo increases to the larger ships I have to test before I start talking about. So very exciting stuff on the horizon for 3.17, 3.17.1. Fleet Week, by the way, if I didn't mention it, is late May. So it can be like the 3rd week of May or so into June. And it's kind of this long-standing thing. You tour the Javelin, you can do this and that. Hopefully they bring that back. Remember, Alien Week comes shortly after. So if you're looking for ships, this is a great time of the year to start planning your buybacks and thinking about CCUs and thinking about where your LTI tokens are, or 10-year tokens, whatever your prerogative is. And try to think about those categories. I know this has been a rough year for everyone, and I know this isn't the best financial situation for everyone. So I'm going to be focusing a lot on the CCU game and looking at what you already have and trying to expand your horizons. Always remember, ships that are not CCU'd yet, you can throw in buyback, and you can buy them back at any time for the same price. So if it's not a CCU'd ship, it's a standard ship, you're staring at the ship and it literally says, I'm a ship, and this is it, throw it in buyback, and you can have that available for you, that credit available for you for Fleet Week or for Alien Week, whichever your prerogative is. And this expand ship, don't let me talk you off of it. It's an interesting ship. It is going to be a standby. I hope it's a loaner for people with already that have the Orion or maybe even the Starfarer, but that's a bit of a stretch. But I hope to see that the Odyssey, I hope to see this as a loaner for those ships. I would not be shocked if it happens immediately, if not slightly after its release. And so for those who stuck around for the overtime, I've got a lot of thoughts I've just packed in here. Some of these will start becoming videos over the next few days and into next week. For those who stuck around this far, if you haven't already, please subscribe. It means so much to me. And have a good one and fly safe. Hope to see you in the verse.